Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today we are making a winter vision board and trying to bring some positive energy to romanticize this season a bit because it can be a bit miserable and I would like it to be a bit more inspiring. I want something that I can look at and will remind me to have a good day and do the things that I know help, because when it's really gloomy it can be difficult to do those things. I can feel like it's not worth putting in the effort to do the things even though I know they help me. Let's look at this one. I've tried very hard to make sure that none of these are AI. I mean, this is now looking a bit suspect with the multiple reflections. This one I like. We did have snow a couple of weeks ago, but it will never look like this where I live, unfortunately. I like this one because it's got all of these books and I'm fairly sure this is real. Yeah, that's a real word. So this looks like it's a real image. I like it because of the contrast of the warm, yellowy light inside and then the very blue, wintry light outside. It feels very normal and real for winter. This one is helpful. So even that looks like AI writing. Can't trust anything on here. This I like, but it also feels maybe a bit too... I don't know the word to describe these kinds of quotes. Idealistic, maybe? Or... I don't know, I guess they feel like stereotypical Pinterest quotes, which is maybe annoying. I really like this one. That is a reminder I feel like I need every day, because it feels a lot better to have created something than it does to have scrolled on Instagram or Twitter. I do have a timer on Instagram, so I can't be on there for hours at a time. And sometimes I think it's cool, like there are certain people who I'm always happy to see what they're posting, but I don't have to do that as a matter of urgency. So I think to be more mindful and to consume less and to create more, I think is good. Now this is my writing board. I've been doing a lot of reading recently, which I'm really glad to have got back into the habit of. And that's also been helping with screen time, because if I know that I would prefer to be reading my book because I'm really caught up in the story, that's a lot easier to say, why am I spending my time randomly scrolling on Twitter when I could be reading this book that I'm really enjoying? I always feel better when I have a book on the go. If I don't have a book on the go, I feel somehow untethered. Whereas if I have a book that I know I'm reading in the background, it's always something to return to, like a base to go back to. It's been really inspiring me to write. And to be honest as well, I've been listening to a lot of music, which also really inspires me to write, because some of these things are so poetic. I'll put some examples of different lyrics that I've listened to, and some of them are like poetry if I'm thinking about different Artsy Monkeys lyrics or Glass Animals lyrics or 21 Pilots lyrics. Like, music is... Where did I see... I won't be able to find the quote now. It only exists in my head. But it's something about how sometimes music is a better... Not a better form of poetry, but music is really... A song is really clear because music has rhythm. So if you want to say a certain amount of words in a line, it doesn't always have to match, but I think... Why am I not making any sense? Someone was making a comment about how poetry is really accessible now, and there's this kind of internet poetry like Rupi Kaur's poetry, which doesn't necessarily have any meter consistently. It's got no consistent meter or rhyme scheme, which is really accessible then because anyone can write like that. But then it is, I guess, more open to say ridicule is wrong, but do you know what I mean? Internet people can look at that and sort of dismiss it and be like, that's not real poetry because it doesn't follow traditional rules. And I don't think like that. I think anyone writing anything and sharing anything and anything that makes you feel anything, who cares if it doesn't follow the normal rules of whatever genre it is, that's still a good thing. But I do think that sometimes those rules, creating within those rules is... I don't want to say it's better because that's not what I mean, but listening to music especially reminds me that sometimes those rules result in really good art, because you have to figure out, how do I say this image in this many syllables to fit into this line, you know? And you end up with some really beautiful, to my mind, poetry, even though they're lyrics, and even if people are just listening to the music or to the song and they're not paying attention to the words, I think it's still really cool. So I've been listening to a lot of music that's been inspiring me, and reading and rereading. And so yeah, I've been writing quite a lot, and I don't really know where it's going in terms of what to do with all of this stuff that I've written. But I started this writing quotes board on my Pinterest. So it has a combination of quotes about writing, different exercises that you can try, writing exercises, and then inspiration quotes that are about writing. This one, read obsessively, write furiously, edit carefully, I think is good, but I don't know if I necessarily need it on my board. One of the books I have to reread is Stephen King's On Writing. It's basically half a memoir and also then his writing tips or what has helped him or how he writes and whatever. I remember reading it and being really interested in all of the memoir parts because I relate to some of his life experiences, but also in the writing advice part, he's saying one of the best tips he can give is to not watch as much TV, because TV will take away all of this time where you could have been reading. And he says to be a good writer, you have to read a lot. I think he's saying you should read for 4 hours a day, which, yes, is quite a lot. Yes, the more I read, the more I find I'm more inspired to write, and also thinking more critically about the way to write. It sounds really boring, I guess, if you're not interested in this, to read a book and be constantly in the background thinking about different rhetorical devices or how they've structured the dialogue or how they're structuring the chapter. But in my head, I find it really interesting, and the more I read, the more I'm able to notice those things and think, oh, okay, this is how they built up to this scene, or this is how this links back to this, or this is foreshadowing this thing, or I'm reading and taking in the story and enjoying the story, but also thinking how they've structured it. And that's been really cool to notice that I'm doing that. This reminds me of a quote from this book, Write a Novel by Nigel Watts. And I think he's quoting someone else, but or maybe not. Maybe he's saying this, but he says, a writer is someone who writes, not someone who thinks about writing. See, none of these are snappy enough to fit on a board. Or no, maybe this one. I like this one. The thing you're most afraid to write that. Yeah, these two are good. I like this one because of the sunlight. It's not loading. Because of the sunlight here and the books. I've been thinking about getting a projector. It might be cool to do movie nights. This board. This is fairy lights and being indoors and candles, and I think good for winter vibes. Even looking at some of these now, I'm thinking, oh no, is that AI? But I don't think so. This is good because reading with a cup of tea. This for me would be hot chocolate. I've been getting into hot chocolate lately. Having a hot chocolate every evening, very nice. Salted caramel hot chocolate. Yeah. How many pictures have I saved at this point? Look at that butterfly lamp. Oh, could that be real or is that AI? This reminds me so much of my room like 8 years ago, because I would literally sit on the floor with my laptop, not with a rug, but with my laptop and my typewriter, and I would have my fairy lights on. Yeah, I like that. This one is a good one because it is gloomy, but also very cozy. I really, in my head, like the idea of having a very sparse, minimalist space, but in reality, this is what would happen. I would end up putting postcards on the walls, and then it ends up being sort of like a scrapbook. I remember watching a Florence Welsh home tour. I'll link it in the description because it is really cool. And yeah, she talks about her house becoming a scrapbook and things just going on the wall and it becoming like this living thing. Okay, so let me look. You won't be able to see this on the recording, but if I just look in my downloads folder, what have I actually got? Because I feel like I've got quite a few, but they're all sort of the same thing. So what am I missing, basically? I'm missing outdoors. Outdoorsy infinity. Let's look at this one. Oh, this is all photos with people or camping, which is not very wintry. That's nice. Although, again, my instant reaction when I look at it is that AI? I don't know who asked for this. You know, what value does an AI picture bring? I can maybe understand the value for different processes at work using AI. Maybe I use it for work. I don't find it to be that helpful or reliable. We use it a lot for different projects. If I had a choice, I would not be using it. But I do not understand the idea of using AI to generate a photo. There are plenty of people out there, brilliant photographers, who've taken photos of their travels, or, you know, why are we needing to generate a photo of a landscape? But even so, when I look at these photos, I think, is that real or is that AI? And I hate that. I'm going to make a copy of my 2025 vision board, but just rename it winter, because then I know it's the right size to upload all of the photos from my downloads folder. Okay, those have all uploaded, so I'm just going to add all of them to the board. And then we'll work out which ones can go and which ones can stay. I'm really pleased with how this mood board has turned out. I think I've got a good mix of different feelings. I like the quotes that I've picked. I've got the nice cozy fairy lights vibes and candles and lamps because it's dark so early, but I've also got daytime ones, things that remind me to notice and romanticize little moments in the day, like the way the sunlight looks, or the books that I have, or the lamps or the blankets, to notice and be grateful for what you have instead of just constantly thinking of the things you wish you had or how things could have been different. I've been maybe too much caught up in that. But I think that goes in phases, so as long as I don't stay in that nostalgia for too long, I think that's okay. And I really like the quotes. I think they are really resonating with the creative space that I'm in, and hopefully they will serve as good reminders, particularly the consume less, create more one. They're good encouragement to be a bit more bold and also to do what feels right for me, even if it doesn't make sense creatively, I guess, or to not so much worry about the outcome of what you're making, but instead to just focus on the process of it, which I as well has been kind of my attitude to making this video. If you've watched my channel before, you will know that this is the first video after a bit of a break. I kept putting off making a video even though I wanted to, because it felt like, because I had not posted one for so long, it had to be like this perfect, amazing, you know, well optimized thing or whatever. But I felt like making a video about this, and I know it's not the most well optimized thing, but it's what I wanted to make, and hopefully it has been inspiring to you in the same way that this process has really helped me. I'm glad I've both made the video and made the mood board. I hope you have got some encouragement from it as well. This is, I guess, all around not to do with only the content of this video, but the context. This is just your sign to lean into this season, especially if you struggle with it, and to keep being creative. And it is a really rewarding thing. And also to read more. If you've not been reading recently and you like reading, get back into that, because I've gone through phases where I don't read for like a month, and now in the last month I've read probably 8 or 9 books. I can feel the difference. It really helps me. So maybe the same for you. So yes, read again. I will leave my You Don't Need a Winter Arc video on the screen. We talk about the ruthless elimination of hurry and slowing down and being present and grateful, and I'm really proud of that video in the same way I'm proud of this one. So yes, if you've not seen that one or haven't seen it, I posted it a year ago, my gosh, please feel free to check that out next. God bless, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.